Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to be talking about factors and multiples. So what is a factor? A factor is a number multiplied by another number to find a product. So an example would be if we have the problem 2 times 3 equals 6. The factors in this problem are 2 and 3. They're the small numbers that multiply together to get a product. Okay? So factors are the small, think about the little facts, okay? Now, what is a multiple? A multiple is the numbers you say when you skip count. So if we're skip counting by twos, we're going to say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and so on. And those are the multiples. So those would be the multiples of 2. If we say the multiples of 10, we would skip count by 10, and so on. So we have to remember that factors are the little facts, the little numbers that multiply together, and multiples are when we skip count. So let's practice finding factors of each number. So if we're going to find the factors of these numbers, I like to use a T-chart. So the way we set up our T-chart is a T with a number that we're finding the factors for above it. So for the number 21, when we look for factors, we want to always start with 1 and that number because that's always a factor pair. So we're going to have 1 times 21. That gives us 21. Those are the two numbers that multiply together to give us our product of 21. Now we have to think, okay, our next number we want to check is 2. Well, is this an even number? Nope, it's an odd number, so 2 won't work. But we know that 3 will work because 3 times 7 equals 21. Now I'm going to try to see, okay, will 4 work? Well, no, because it's not even. Will 5 work? No, because it doesn't end in a 5 or 0. And then we want to check does 6 work. And it can only be a 6 can only be a factor if 2 and 3 were both factors. And we don't have 2 as a factor, so 6 won't work. And we already have 7 over here, so that means that we are done. So the factors of 21 would be 1, 3, 7, and 21. And you may also sometimes see them listed as the factors listed as more of the rainbow effect, where you have 1 and 21, and you kind of have this upside down rainbow, or sometimes they draw it on the top. And you have 3 and 7. You work your way in till you found all of the factors. And then once you have a number that repeats in the other row or the other side, then you know that you're done. So now if we look for the factors of 12, we want to make our T-chart. And we want to start with 1 times 12 because 1 is our smallest factor. 12 is going to be our biggest factor. And then we know that any other factor is going to be between those two. So now we have to check, okay, what does 2 work? Well, 12 is even, so we know 2 will work. So 2 times what gives me 12? Well, 2 times 6 equals 12. Now I want to check 3. And 3 works because 3 times 4 equals 12. And since I already have my next number 4 listed, I know that I found all of my numbers because I've checked every number as I've gone. So now my factors of 12 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. The next one I'm going to try is find the factors of 48. Now, when I look at this number, I'm thinking there might be a few numbers that are factors, but we know that we always can start with 1 and times 48 because 1 times 48 or 1 times any number gives us that number. Now I want to check 2. I know that 48 is even because it ends in an 8, so 2 times what would give me 48? So I'm going to go off to the side here and I'm going to do this division because I know that the reverse of multiplication is division. So if I do 48 divided by 2, I will get 2 times what gives me 48. So 4 divided by 2 equals 2. 2 times 2 is 4. I subtract and I get 0. I bring down my 8, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. And I subtract, I get 0. So 48 divided by 2 equals 24. That means that 2 times 24 equals 48. Now let's check 3. Does 3 work? Well, if I'm looking at this, 48, and I divide it by 3, I know that 3 goes into 4 once, and 3 times 1 is 3. I subtract, I get 1. Now I bring down my 8. 18 divided by 3 equals 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. So when I subtract, I get 0. That means that 3 times 16 equals 48. Now what about 4? Well, when I look at this number, I see a 4 and an 8. I know that those are both factors of 4, or multiples of 4. So I know that 4 is going to be a factor because 4 times 1, or 4 times 10, gives me 40, and 4 times 2 equals 8. So 12 times 4 equals 48. Now let's think about 5. Does 5 work? Well, 5's not going to work because it doesn't end in a 5 or 0. What about 6? Let's think about this. We said before that if 6 is a factor, that means that 2 and 3 were both factors. And we have both 2 and 3 as factors. So that means that 6 is going to be a factor. And I think about my multiples of 6. If I list my multiples of 6, which I said is just our skip counting, I would have 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. Ooh, that gives me 48. Now, to find 6 times what gives me 48, I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means my 8th multiple of 6 would be 48. So 6 times 8 gives me 48. Now I want to think about 7. Well, I know that 7 times 7 gives me 49. So there's no way I can get 48 multiplying by 7. And since I already have 8 over here, I know I'm done. So my multiples of 48 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, 24, and 48. Now let's try 27. Now I know I start with my 1 times 27. And now I want to try 2. Well, 2 is not going to work because 27 isn't an even number, it's odd. But what about 3? Well, I know that 3 times 9 equals 27. Well, 4 isn't going to work because it's not even. And 5 isn't going to work because doesn't end in a 5 or 0. What about 6? Well, we looked at the bottom in the problem before. We listed our multiples of 6, and 27 wasn't one of them. So 6 doesn't work for 27. And what about 7? Well, if I count by 7s, I would have 7, 14, 21, 28. That doesn't work either. And if I think of my multiples of 8, I would have 8, 16, 24, 32. And that doesn't give me 27. So 8 isn't going to be a factor either. And I know I already have 9 over here. So that means that my only factors of 27 are 1, 3, 9, and 27. Now, I've practiced finding some factors. Now, let's practice finding some multiples. We talked about a few in the first few examples of finding factors, but let's do a few more. Let's try to find the factors of a few different numbers. So let's think. Let's try to find the multiples of 4, 10, 5, and 3. Those are some good ones. So we're going to just find the first 5 multiples of each of these numbers. So for 4, the first multiple of 4 is 4. And we just want to think about our skip counting. If I skip count by 4s, I'm going to say 4 because that's 4 times 1. And then 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. And 4 times 5 is 20. So that would be my first 5 multiples of 4. Now for 10, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to list the first 5 multiples. So I'm going to do, if I count by tens, I'm going to say 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And we could keep going, but it just says to list the first 5 multiples just to get the hang of it. And you can do this with any numbers. Now if we think about the first 5 multiples of 5, we'd have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the first 5 multiples of 5. And now I want to do 3. So I have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So those would be the first 5 multiples of 3. So all we have to do is just skip count. And you guys have been doing skip counting since kindergarten. Counted by 2s and counted by 5s and 10s. And now we're just thinking about those other numbers that we may not know as well. So you can go take out a piece of paper. You can practice any numbers you want. You can do more than the first 5. And it's good practice for you. So before we end here, I want to just do a little quick review of what factors are and what multiples are. So factors, we want to think as the little facts. They're the numbers you multiply together. So when we think about this, we could think of the problem 3 times 4 equals 12. And in this problem, 3 and 4 would be factors because they're the numbers that are being multiplied together. There's little numbers, so we think about little facts. But for multiples, we want to think about skip counting. And we've been doing skip counting since kindergarten. So we're just giving it a new name and kind of applying it to multiplication. So when we skip count, we're just counting by a number. So if we're skip counting by 2s, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. We can even do multiples of bigger numbers. If we do multiples of 50, we would have 50, because that's 5 times 1, or 50 times 1. Then we do 50 times 2, which is 100. And 50 times 3 is 150. Then 50 times 4 is 200. And if we look at this, we're just adding 50 each time. And that's what skip counting is. Same thing with our 2s. We just added 2 each time. So if we're not sure what the next multiple would be, we can always just add another multiple or another set of that number, because we know that multiples or multiplication is just repeated addition. So I hope that helps you to distinguish between factors and multiples. And when you're doing any other work, feel free to come back to this video for another review. All right, thanks for watching.